Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. The red light made everyone look guilty. In the grainy glow of a bedside lamp and a circle of candles stolen from a kitchen drawer, their faces blurred into something older than 17, older than laughter, older than dares. The camcorder sat on the dresser like an extra person in the room, its little red dot blinking patiently, recording everything. Megan stood near the foot of the bed, arms crossed, trying to look bored. She was the kind of girl who didn't flinch at horror movies, who didn't jump when the teacher slammed a book on a desk. Fear was a thing she refused to wear. Shelby sat on the carpet, knees tucked under her oversized sweatshirt. She didn't look at the camera. She kept looking at the Ouija board like it had teeth. Nolan grinned too wide, like the night was a party and not a mistake. "Come on," he said, and his voice cracked with excitement. "We're doing it." Somebody, Megan couldn't remember who later, because memory liked to protect itself, pulled a pin from their finger and let a bead of blood drop into the center of the board. It sank into the wood grain like it belonged there. The planchette moved before any of them admitted to pushing it. A soft slide, a shiver through the room. Shelby swallowed. "We should stop." "Don't," Megan said automatically, sharper than she meant to. She didn't like how Shelby always sounded like she knew better, like she had something Megan didn't. "It's just a game." The planchette jerked hard enough to scrape. Nolan laughed, but it came out wrong, like his throat was tight. "What's your name?" someone asked. The candles bent inward, their flames leaning toward the board as if listening. The planchette spelled nothing recognizable at first, just letters, just nonsense. Then it paused. Then it dragged, slow and deliberate. "Megan." Megan's mouth went dry. "No," she whispered, and she didn't know why she said it. She hadn't meant to speak at all. The room went cold in a single breath, not a gradual chill, a snap. Nolan's smile faltered. "Okay, who's doing that?" The planchette moved again. "WEKNOW. Shelby's hand trembled on the edge of the board. "I didn't." A sound came from the hallway outside the bedroom door. Not footsteps, not a creak. Something like nails dragging lightly down the wood. Megan stared at the door, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. Nolan's laugh died completely. His eyes looked suddenly wet. "Turn it off," he said too quietly. "Turn the camera off." Megan didn't move. The candles flickered. One went out, then another. The planchette slid to the bottom of the board as if pulled by a hook. "Here." Shelby's breath hitched. "We didn't say goodbye." The door handle turned. Not fast, not forced. Just patient. And then Nolan made a sound like he was trying to inhale through water, his body stiffening as if something inside him had grabbed his spine. Megan stepped back, heart hammering. "Nolan?" He clawed at his throat, eyes wide, face turning a sick shade of gray. His mouth opened in a silent plea. Shelby screamed. The camera kept recording. And Megan, frozen in the red light, her hands empty and useless, watched Nolan collapse onto the carpet like a puppet whose strings had been cut. The planchette slid one last time, gentle as a fingertip against skin. 1998. Then the screen went black. Megan hadn't thought about that tape in years. Not consciously. Not the way a person thought about grocery lists or bills or the ache in their knees after a 12-hour shift. But it lived in her anyway, behind her eyes, in the quiet spaces between tasks. It surfaced in dreams sometimes, jagged and out of order, candlelight, laughter, Nolan's mouth opening in a soundless scream. She told herself she'd grown up, that she'd paid for it in ways no one could see. Megan became a nurse because she didn't know what else to do with the guilt. She told herself it was penance. She told herself helping people was the closest thing to forgiveness she'd ever earn. Her co-workers called her steady, calm, a saint in scrubs. They didn't know there was a part of her that still smelled that bedroom, wax and sweat and something cold that didn't belong. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, right as Megan was wiping down the kitchen counter, trying to keep her hands busy so her mind wouldn't wander. Unknown number. She stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. Megan's thumb hovered. Her pulse thickened. She answered. Silence. At first, only the faint hiss of a bad connection, like someone breathing through fabric. Then a voice, thin and familiar in a way that made Megan's stomach fold in on itself. Megan? Her name spoken like it was fragile. Megan stood so still her shoulder muscles began to burn. Shelby? A pause. A soft swallow. It's me. Megan hadn't heard Shelby's voice since graduation, since the last time she'd seen her standing by her locker, eyes rimmed red, jaw set like she'd swallowed something sharp. Megan had pretended she didn't see her. Megan's throat tightened now, the years between them collapsing like paper. What? Megan tried again, steadier. What's wrong? Shelby's breathing was shallow, uneven. I'm sick. Megan's skin prickled. She didn't ask what kind of sick. She didn't want details. Details made things real. I don't have anyone, Shelby continued, voice barely above a whisper. I can't get out of bed most days. I can't. Her breath caught, and for a second Megan heard something else behind it. A faint clicking sound, like teeth. Megan gripped the edge of the counter until her knuckles whitened. Shelby, you should be in a hospital. A soft laugh came through the phone. It didn't sound amused. It sounded tired. I tried that. Megan's gaze drifted to the window over her sink. Outside, the afternoon sun made everything look harmless. Her yard, her quiet street, her normal life. She felt suddenly like she was looking at it through glass from underwater. Why are you calling me? Megan asked. Shelby didn't answer right away. The silence stretched long enough to become its own voice. Then, quietly, because you're the only one who would come. Megan's stomach twisted, shame blooming hot in her chest. She remembered Shelby's scream in that bedroom. She remembered Nolan's body on the carpet. She remembered the way everyone scattered afterward like frightened animals. And she remembered the promise Shelby made later, face pale, eyes flat. I'll take care of it. I'll destroy it. no one will ever see it. Megan hadn't believed her. Not fully, not ever. Megan swallowed hard. "Where are you?" Shelby's voice softened, almost grateful. "It's not far, old family farmhouse outside town. You remember the road?" "I remember." Megan lied. She didn't. But her body did. Her nerves did. Shelby gave her directions anyway, slow and careful, like she was feeding Megan something she couldn't choke on. Megan wrote them down even though her hand was shaking. When Shelby finished, she whispered, "Please." The word wasn't a plea. It was a hook. Megan stared at the paper after the call ended, her heart pounding like she'd just run upstairs. She told herself she was going because it was the right thing to do. She told herself she owed Shelby. She told herself 100 things. But deep down, in the place she didn't let herself look, Megan felt the old fear stirring awake. Not fear of Shelby. Fear of what Shelby still had. The road to Shelby's farmhouse narrowed the farther Megan drove, the world thinning into trees and empty fields and a sky that looked too big for comfort. Her GPS lost confidence halfway there, the voice stuttering, recalculating, then falling silent as if it had decided it didn't want to be responsible for what happened next. Megan followed Shelby's directions instead, turning onto a gravel lane that cut through overgrown weeds. The tires crunched loud in the quiet. The air smelled like damp earth and old leaves, even though it wasn't raining. The farmhouse appeared slowly, as if it had been waiting just beyond the tree line and only now chose to be seen. It was 2 stories, pale paint peeling in long strips like shedding skin. The porch sagged in the middle. The windows were dark, some covered with thin curtains that looked stained with age. A barn slumped behind it, half swallowed by wild grass. Megan parked and sat for a moment with both hands on the steering wheel, her heart hammering too hard for a simple visit. She told herself she could leave at any time. She stepped onto the porch and felt the boards flex under her weight. The front door opened before she knocked. Shelby stood there, smaller than Megan remembered, hair dull and pulled back, her face drawn tight around her eyes. She looked like someone had been slowly erasing her. For a second, Megan couldn't speak. She'd imagined this reunion in 100 ways over the years, but none of them included the way Shelby's gaze held her like a hand around the throat. "Megan," Shelby said softly. Megan forced her lips into something gentle. "Hi." Shelby stepped aside. "Come in." The house smelled like dust and cold tea. The air inside was stale, too still, as if the rooms didn't like being disturbed. Megan's shoes thudded against old wood as she entered, and the sound seemed to travel farther than it should have in such a small space. The living room was dim, curtains pulled, even though it was afternoon. Furniture sat covered in thin sheets, like ghosts that had given up trying to scare anyone. A single lamp was on in the corner, its light weak and yellow. "You keep it dark," Megan said, trying to make conversation. Shelby's mouth twitched. "Light hurts." Megan nodded like that made sense. She didn't ask more. Shelby moved slowly down the hall, one hand sliding along the wall as if she needed it for balance. Megan followed, cataloging everything automatically. Years of nursing making her notice what other people missed. The shallow breathing, the faint tremor in Shelby's fingers, the bruised shadows under her eyes. Shelby led her into a downstairs bedroom that had once been an office, judging by the old desk pushed against the wall. Now it held a hospital-style bed someone had dragged in from somewhere else. A tray table sat beside it. Pill bottles lined the windowsill in neat rows. Megan's stomach tightened. "I can't do stairs anymore," Shelby said quietly. "Not like I used to." Megan swallowed. "Okay, that's okay." Shelby lowered herself into the bed with a careful, practiced motion. When she settled, she looked suddenly exhausted, as if simply standing had been an act of defiance. Megan stepped closer, forcing herself to keep her voice warm. "Tell me what you need." Shelby's gaze flicked to Megan's hands. "Everything," she whispered. "Just little things." Megan nodded. "I can do little things." Shelby's eyes softened, almost grateful. Almost. "I didn't know who else to call," Shelby said. "I didn't want strangers." Megan felt the old guilt flare hot in her chest. She took it like a punishment she deserved. "I'm here." Shelby stared at her for a beat too long. Then she looked away toward the hallway. "There's a basement," Shelby added, voice suddenly flat. "The door sticks. Don't force it if it doesn't open right away." Megan's skin prickled. "Why would I need to go down there?" Shelby's mouth curved faintly, not quite a smile. "Laundry, storage, just, if you do, be quick." Megan nodded again, though something in her wanted to argue, to ask why Shelby sounded like she was giving instructions for surviving rather than housekeeping. Shelby's eyelids fluttered. "I'm tired." "Of course," Megan said. "Rest." Shelby's eyes closed. Her breathing slowed. Megan stood there in the dim room, listening to the house settle around them, the faint hum of the lamp, the distant creak of wood. Then, very softly from somewhere above the ceiling, a slow, deliberate scrape, like nails dragged gently across a floorboard. Megan froze, her breath caught in her throat. She stared up. The sound stopped. The house went still again, as if it had never happened. Megan let out a shaky exhale and told herself it was nothing. Old houses made noises, that's all. That had to be all. But when she looked back down at Shelby, Shelby's eyes were open again, watching her. And Shelby whispered so quietly, Megan almost thought she imagined it. "Don't stay awake too long tonight." By nightfall, the farmhouse felt smaller. It wasn't the walls moving. Megan told herself that immediately, the way she'd learned to correct her own thoughts before they could spiral. It was the quiet, the kind that didn't just sit in the corners, but leaned in close, listening. Shelby slept on and off, drifting in shallow bursts like she couldn't stay in one world for long. Megan moved through the downstairs rooms with a careful routine, turning on lamps instead of overhead lights. The bulbs buzzed faintly, the sound thin and strained, as if even electricity didn't feel safe here. She cleaned the kitchen first. There wasn't much to do, but she needed her hands busy. She wiped counters already clean, washed 2 cups that looked like they hadn't been used in days, straightened a stack of mail that wasn't hers. Then she checked Shelby again. Shelby lay on her side, facing the wall. Megan watched her chest rise and fall, counting breaths without meaning to. "You don't have to hover," Shelby murmured without opening her eyes. Megan flinched. "I'm not hovering." Shelby's lips curved faintly. You always did. The words were soft, almost teasing. Megan forced a small laugh that didn't reach her throat. Do you need anything? Shelby paused. Water. Megan fetched it, careful not to spill. Shelby drank slowly, like the act cost her something. Thank you, Shelby whispered. Megan nodded. She waited for Shelby to say more, to talk about the past, to give Megan an opening she could step through. Shelby didn't. Later, when the house had fully darkened and the windows turned into black mirrors, Shelby called out again. Megan. Megan hurried in. Yeah? Shelby's eyes looked glassy in the lamplight. My legs hurt, the cramps. I need the cream, it's upstairs. Megan blinked. Upstairs? Shelby's gaze held hers. Second floor bathroom, cabinet under the sink. Megan's pulse ticked up. She hadn't planned to go upstairs tonight. The staircase in the hallway looked too narrow, too steep, disappearing into darkness like it led somewhere that didn't belong to this house. Can it wait until morning? Megan asked, gentle. Shelby's expression changed, just a fraction, a tightening at the corner of her mouth. No, she said. It wasn't a request. Megan swallowed. Okay. She took the hallway slowly, the floorboards creaking beneath her like complaints. The staircase smelled faintly of mildew and old wood. As she climbed, she kept her hand on the rail, knuckles white. At the top, the air felt colder, not like a draft, like the temperature had been set differently up here. The second floor hallway stretched ahead, narrow and dim. Doors on either side stood closed. The wallpaper peeled in long curls, exposing older patterns beneath. Flowers faded to the color of bruises. Megan moved toward the bathroom, the only door slightly ajar. Inside, the bathroom light flickered when she flipped the switch, then steadied into a sickly green glow. The mirror above the sink reflected her face too sharply, making her look hollow-eyed and pale. She crouched and opened the cabinet. The shelves were cluttered, half-used bottles, old soaps, things that didn't look touched in years. She found the cream near the back. And something else. A folded sweater. Men's, by the size of it. Dark gray, soft, the cuffs worn thin. It didn't belong in a bathroom cabinet. It didn't belong anywhere in this house. Megan's fingers brushed it, and a chill ran up her arm. She stood, holding the cream, and stared at the sweater as if it might explain itself. The bathroom door creaked behind her. Megan turned fast. Nothing. The door was still open the same amount. The hallway beyond it was empty and dark. Megan's breath came shallow. She listened. Silence. She told herself she was jumpy, that she'd been driving too long, sleeping too little, carrying too much. She stepped into the hallway. Halfway down it, she stopped because the air above her felt wrong. Not cold. Occupied. Megan slowly lifted her gaze toward the ceiling. For one single second, she saw it. A shape pressed into the corner where the ceiling met the wall, pale limbs bent at impossible angles, hair hanging down like wet string. A face turned toward her, eyes wide and gleaming, mouth stretched into something that was not a smile. Megan's blood turned to ice. She blinked, and the corner was empty. The hallway was just a hallway again. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might bruise her ribs from the inside. She forced herself to move, 1 foot at a time, down the stairs. The farmhouse seemed to hold its breath with her. When she reached Shelby's room, she pushed the door open and stepped inside, clutching the cream like a lifeline. Shelby lay in bed exactly as Megan had left her, weak, still, her face turned toward the wall. Megan's voice shook. I got it. Shelby didn't move. Megan rubbed the cream onto Shelby's calves with careful hands, watching for any sign of reaction. Shelby's skin felt cool. Too cool. Megan finished and pulled the blanket up. As she stood to leave, Shelby spoke again, quiet, almost tender. "You're going to start seeing things," Shelby whispered. Megan froze. "What?" Shelby turned her head slightly, just enough for Megan to see one eye in the lamplight. "That's what happens here," Shelby said, "when you don't sleep." Megan backed away, her throat tight. "Shelby, did you?" Shelby's eyelids fluttered. "Good night, Megan." Megan left the room with her pulse roaring. She didn't turn the lights off. She didn't even try to sleep. Because every time she closed her eyes, she felt it. The certainty of something above her. Waiting. And somewhere in the farmhouse, soft as a secret, nails dragged slowly across wood again. Megan lasted until dawn without sleeping. She lay on the couch with every lamp in the living room lit, her shoes still on, her body stiff as if relaxing would be a mistake. The farmhouse didn't scream or crash or throw anything at her. It simply existed around her, patient and watchful, letting her imagination do the bleeding. When morning finally bled through the curtains, pale and thin, Megan felt foolish for how terrified she'd been. Fear always looked smaller in daylight. She checked Shelby first. Shelby's room smelled faintly of medicine and something sour underneath it, like old pennies. Shelby lay with her eyes closed, lashes dark against her cheeks. She looked fragile again, the way sick people were supposed to look. Megan hated the relief that washed through her. "Morning," Megan said softly. Shelby's eyes opened slowly. "Did you sleep?" Megan forced a smile. "A little." Shelby's gaze held hers, steady and unreadable. "You look tired." Megan's stomach tightened. "You asked for the cream. I got it." Shelby blinked, as if thinking. "Oh, right." Megan stared at her. "You don't remember?" Shelby's lips curved faintly. "I forget things." Megan swallowed the urge to argue. She'd seen that thing in the ceiling corner. She had. She knew she had. But she also knew what it sounded like when someone tried to explain fear out loud. It sounded like madness. Shelby turned her head toward the window. "Can you do laundry today?" Megan nodded automatically. "Sure." "The detergent's in the basement," Shelby added, too casually. "Down the stairs, on the shelf?" Megan's throat tightened. She didn't want to go down there. She hadn't even touched the basement door yet. She'd avoided looking at it, like the sight of it might make it real. Still, laundry was harmless, a normal task, something she could do to prove she was still in control. Megan went into the hallway and faced the basement door. It was painted white once, but the paint had yellowed. The knob looked older than the house, dark and worn smooth. The air around it felt colder, as if the wood itself held on to winter. She twisted the knob. The door stuck just like Shelby said it would. Megan pressed her shoulder against it and pushed. It gave with a reluctant groan. The basement stairs dropped into darkness. The smell hit her immediately. Damp soil, mold, and something faintly metallic, like a wet mouth. Megan flicked the light switch. The bulb overhead sputtered, then lit with a weak yellow glow that didn't reach the corners. Shadows clung to the walls. The stairs creaked under her weight, each step sounding louder than it should have. At the bottom, the basement opened into a low-ceilinged room with exposed beams and concrete walls sweating moisture. Shelves lined one side, stacked with jars and old tools and boxes sealed with brittle tape. Megan moved carefully, scanning for detergent. Her eyes caught on a pile near the far wall. Clothing. Not neatly folded, not packed away. A heap half hidden behind a stack of cardboard boxes like someone had tried to shove it out of sight. Megan's stomach dropped. She stepped closer. A denim jacket, men's, heavy, the shoulders broad, a flannel shirt with the elbows worn thin, a woman's cardigan in soft faded blue, a scarf patterned with little stars. None of it looked like Shelby's. Megan crouched, fingers trembling as she lifted the scarf. It smelled faintly of perfume, not old perfume. Recent. Megan's breath came shallow. She looked around the basement, suddenly aware of how alone she was down here. The light above buzzed softly. Somewhere behind the walls, water dripped in a slow, steady rhythm. She forced herself to stand and find the detergent, her mind racing. Maybe Shelby bought thrift clothes. Maybe she was planning donations. Maybe Megan was letting fear invent stories. Megan found the detergent on the shelf, grabbed it too quickly, and turned toward the stairs. That was when she noticed the door at the back of the basement, not the stairs. Another door, small, half hidden behind a curtain of hanging plastic like a root cellar or storage closet. Megan stared at it, pulse ticking harder. She didn't remember seeing it before. She hadn't been down here long enough to miss it. The plastic curtain stirred slightly. Megan froze. There was no draft, no open window. The plastic moved anyway, a slow ripple like a breath passing through it. Megan backed away, detergent clutched tight, and climbed the stairs faster than she meant to. The basement steps groaned under her hurried weight. The air felt thicker with every step upward, like the house didn't want to let her go. She slammed the basement door shut behind her and leaned against it, shaking. When her heartbeat finally slowed, she told herself she wouldn't mention the clothes. Not yet. Not until she understood what she was looking at. But when she returned to Shelby's room, Shelby was awake, watching the doorway like she'd been waiting. Megan set the detergent down on the desk. "I found it." Shelby's eyes flicked to Megan's face. "Did you see anything else?" Megan's skin prickled. "No." Shelby smiled faintly, slow and strange. "Good." Megan forced herself to keep her voice calm. "Shelby, whose clothes are in the basement?" Shelby blinked once, twice. Then she sighed like Megan had asked something exhausting. "Oh," Shelby said softly. "Those." Megan waited, throat tight. Shelby's voice stayed gentle. "Just things people left behind. I was going to donate them. Goodwill." Megan stared at her. Shelby's gaze didn't waver. "Why?" Megan swallowed. "They smell recent." Shelby's smile deepened by a fraction. "You notice everything. That's why you're good at what you do." The compliment landed wrong, like a knife wrapped in silk. Megan stepped closer to the bed, her voice dropping. "Shelby, Are you alone out here?" Shelby's eyes glittered, almost amused. Then she whispered, so quietly Megan barely heard it.
"Not anymore."
Megan's blood went cold. Shelby turned her face toward the wall again, as if the conversation bored her. And Megan stood there, detergent still in her hands, realizing with sick certainty that the farmhouse wasn't just isolating her. It was collecting her. By the second night, Megan stopped pretending she was here for forgiveness. The farmhouse had stripped that illusion away the way it stripped paint from the walls, slowly, relentlessly, until only rot remained. The clothes in the basement sat behind her eyes like a splinter she couldn't stop worrying at. She'd tried to distract herself with chores, with routine, with the comfort of being useful. But every time she turned her back, she felt watched. Every time she blinked, she feared she'd open her eyes and see Shelby clinging to the ceiling again, smiling down like a patient spider. Shelby slept most of the day, drifting in and out like she was swimming through heavy water. Megan took her vitals anyway. She cleaned the bed, she changed the sheets, she made soup. She played the role she'd perfected over decades: calm hands, soft voice, careful movements. A saint. But when Megan stepped into the bathroom and locked the door behind her, her face changed in the mirror. Her eyes looked older than 45, harder. She reached into her overnight bag and pulled out a small zippered pouch. Inside were alcohol wipes, gauze, and a handful of syringes she'd taken from the hospital supply room without signing them out. She told herself she hadn't stolen them. She told herself she'd earned them. Megan stared at the clear liquid in the vial, the label turned away. She didn't read it. Reading made it real. She'd practiced the lie in her head all day. It's just vitamins. It'll help her. It's mercy. Megan exhaled slowly and slid the vial back into the pouch. She didn't need courage. She needed control. That evening, Shelby woke hungry for the first time. Megan watched her sip broth with trembling hands and felt a strange, bitter tenderness. The past had done this to them a single night, a single mistake. But the mistake wasn't the ritual. The mistake was thinking it ended. Shelby set the bowl down and looked at Megan. "You're quiet tonight." Megan forced a small smile. "Just tired." Shelby's gaze drifted over Megan's shoulder toward the hallway. "Did you sleep today?" Megan's fingers tightened around the blanket she was folding. "A little." Shelby hummed softly. "Liar." Megan's pulse jumped. "Excuse me?" Shelby turned her head slowly, meeting Megan's eyes. Her expression was mild, almost kind. "You don't sleep here, not really. You just close your eyes and let the house breathe on you." Megan swallowed. "You asked me to come." Shelby's lips curved. "I did." Megan stepped closer to the bed, lowering her voice. "Why?" Shelby's eyes glittered. "Because you always come when you feel guilty." The words hit like a slap. Megan's mouth went dry. "I am guilty." Shelby's smile softened, but it wasn't comforting. It was knowing. Not enough. A sound came from above them, soft, dragging, nails against wood. Megan froze. Shelby didn't react. The sound moved across the ceiling like something crawling slowly overhead, pausing as if listening. Megan's throat tightened. Do you hear that? Shelby blinked, slow and heavy. Hear what? Megan stared at her. Shelby's face was blank, innocent, weak. The scraping stopped. Silence swallowed the room again. Megan's hands trembled. She clenched them into fists until the shaking eased. She couldn't do this much longer. She couldn't keep watching corners and ceilings and shadows that weren't there until they were. Later, when Shelby's eyelids drooped again, Megan moved with practiced ease. She pulled the tray table closer. She wiped Shelby's arm with an alcohol pad. Shelby's eyes fluttered open halfway. What's that? Just vitamins, Megan said gently. It'll help your strength. Shelby stared at the syringe. Her gaze lingered a fraction too long. Then she smiled faintly. You're still taking care of people. Megan's jaw tightened. That's what I do. Shelby's voice softened. Is it? Megan pressed the needle in. Shelby didn't flinch. The plunger slid down smoothly, the clear liquid disappearing into Shelby's vein like a secret. Megan withdrew the needle and taped cotton over the spot, her hands steady even as her stomach churned. Shelby's breathing slowed. Megan watched her face carefully, waiting for pain, for nausea, for any sign she'd miscalculated. Shelby only sighed, long and satisfied, as if Megan had given her exactly what she wanted. Megan swallowed hard. How do you feel? Shelby's eyes opened fully, bright, too bright. And for the first time since Megan arrived, Shelby's voice dropped into something lower, layered with a second sound beneath it, like someone else speaking through her teeth.
I feel better,
Shelby whispered. Megan's blood went cold. Shelby's gaze slid upward toward the ceiling above Megan's head. Megan didn't want to look, but she couldn't stop herself. She turned slowly. And there, above the bed, pressed into the corner like a stain, was a shape that didn't belong to any human body. Limbs bent wrong, hair hanging down, face turned toward Megan with a smile stretched too wide. Megan's breath hitched. The shape moved just slightly, like it was settling in, getting comfortable. Megan's voice came out as a rasp. Shelby. Shelby's eyes never left Megan's face. Shelby smiled. And the house all around them seemed to inhale. Megan didn't sleep. She didn't blink unless she had to. She sat in the kitchen with a mug of cold coffee clutched between her hands like a weapon, listening to the farmhouse breathe. The lamp stayed on. Every light she could reach stayed on. The glow didn't make her feel safer. It only made the shadows sharper, more defined, like the house wanted her to see exactly where darkness lived. At 2:13 a.m., Shelby called her name. Not from the bedroom. From upstairs. Megan froze so hard her bones ached. The farmhouse was silent otherwise, as if holding its breath for her reaction. Megan, Shelby called again, sweet and patient, the voice drifting down the stairwell like perfume. Come here. Megan stood slowly. Her chair scraped the floor. The sound felt too loud, like it might wake something. She didn't want to go upstairs, but she'd learned this house didn't care what she wanted. She moved down the hallway, every nerve lit. The staircase waited like an open mouth. As she climbed, she kept her eyes forward, refusing to look up at the ceiling corners. The second-floor hallway was darker than before. The bathroom light flickered even though she hadn't touched it. The air smelled faintly metallic, like blood diluted in water. "Megan," Shelby said again, closer now. The door at the end of the hall stood open. Megan stepped into the room and found it empty. No bed, no furniture, no lamp, no sheets. Just bare floorboards and peeling wallpaper. A room that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. Megan's breath hitched. Her pulse thundered. Then the door behind her clicked shut. Megan spun, yanking at the knob. Locked. Her throat tightened. Shelby. A soft laugh drifted down from above. Megan's eyes lifted. And Shelby was there, clinging to the ceiling corner like a spider, her body folded wrong, her hair hanging down in long dark strands. Her face was pale and smooth, eyes too wide, mouth curved in a smile that did not belong to a sick woman. Shelby's lips moved, but the voice that came out was not hers. It was layered, deep and amused, like something wearing Shelby as a costume.
"You're late."
Megan's skin went ice cold. What is this? Shelby tilted her head, bone popping softly. "This is the part where you stop pretending." Megan swallowed hard. "I came to help you." Shelby's smile widened. "No." Shelby dropped from the ceiling. She landed soundlessly in front of Megan, barefoot, steady, eyes shining. Megan stumbled back until her shoulders hit the wall. Her mind screamed to run, to fight, to wake up. But there was nowhere to go. Shelby stepped closer. Her voice softened. Shelby's voice now, fragile and familiar for just a heartbeat. "You always hated me," Shelby whispered. Megan's mouth opened, denial rising automatically, but the truth came first. "I didn't hate you," Megan rasped. "I hated what you had." Shelby's face flickered, pain, then calm again. The demon behind her pressed forward like a grin. "Say his name," it whispered. Megan's stomach twisted. She felt 17 again, candlelight on her skin, the camcorder blinking. "Nolan," Megan whispered. The room seemed to darken at the sound. Shelby's eyes gleamed. "You watched him die." Megan's voice shook. "We all did." Shelby stepped closer, so close Megan could smell something sour on her breath. "You didn't tell anyone." Megan's jaw clenched. "I couldn't." Shelby laughed softly. "You wouldn't." The words struck harder than any accusation. Megan's fingers curled around the syringe in her pocket. Shelby's gaze flicked downward, almost amused. Megan's heart pounded. "I know what you're doing." Shelby's smile turned sweet again. "Do you?" Megan moved fast, years of training making her hands steady even while her mind fractured. She shoved Shelby back with one arm, yanked the syringe out with the other, and plunged it into Shelby's neck. Shelby's eyes widened. For a second, her body froze. Then she made a sound, half laugh, half choke, as if she found the whole thing delightful. Megan pushed the plunger down. All of it. Shelby's knees buckled. Megan caught her instinctively, then shoved her away like she'd touched fire. Shelby collapsed onto the floorboards, twitching once, then going still. The room held its breath. Megan stood over her, shaking, sweat cold on her skin. "Good," Megan whispered, voice breaking. "Good, it's done." But the silence didn't feel like relief. It felt like the pause before something worse. Megan ripped the door open. Somehow it wasn't locked anymore, and stumbled downstairs, half running, half falling. She went straight to Shelby's bedroom on the first floor, tearing through drawers, yanking open cabinets, tossing blankets aside with frantic hands. Her heart hammered in her ears, drowning out the creaks and groans of the farmhouse. Under the bed, her fingers found a shoebox. Megan's breath caught. She dragged it out, hands trembling, and flipped the lid open. Inside, wrapped in an old towel, was the tape. The camcorder footage. Proof. Megan stared at it like it was a beating heart. A laugh bubbled out of her, small, broken, relieved. Then her fingers brushed something else inside the box. A plastic bag. Megan's smile faltered. Used syringes, dozens of them. The ones she'd brought, the ones she'd used, the ones she'd thrown away in the trash. All here, saved. Megan's mouth went dry. Tucked beneath the bag was a folded note, the paper stained faintly brown at the edges. Megan unfolded it with shaking hands. The handwriting was Shelby's. Neat, careful, almost pretty.
You think you won, but every syringe you used, I took my blood, and I gave it back. Now it's in you. Now you'll crawl too.
Megan stared at the words until they blurred. Her throat tightened. No. Her fingers went numb. The farmhouse seemed to tilt slightly, like the floor shifted under her feet. Megan blinked hard. The lights flickered. Her vision tunneled. She felt something move under her skin, slow, curious, intimate, like a hand sliding into a glove. Megan's breath hitched. Her joints popped softly. Her neck turned a fraction too far. She clutched the tape to her chest like it could save her, but the laugh that came out of her mouth wasn't hers. It was Shelby's laugh, warm and delighted. Megan's lips stretched into a smile she couldn't stop. She heard her own voice whisper, layered with something deeper.
You were always going to come back.
Megan's body moved without her permission. She stood, slow and graceful, and carried the tape and the syringes out into the hallway like offerings. She walked to the kitchen. She found matches. She found oil. She moved through the farmhouse as if she knew it perfectly, as if she'd lived here for years. The first flame caught fast, licking up the curtains, hungry and bright. The second flame climbed the wallpaper like it had been waiting for permission. The farmhouse lit from within, windows blooming orange, shadows dancing wildly behind the glass. Megan stepped onto the porch and watched. The fire reflected in her eyes. The tape was still in her hand. The evidence, the truth, but it didn't matter anymore. Because no one was left to confess. The farmhouse groaned as beams gave way, collapsing inward like a dying animal. Megan smiled wider. And in the firelight, her body shifted slightly, shoulders loosening, posture changing, like someone else had finally settled into her skin. She laughed again, soft and satisfied. Then she turned her head toward the dark road leading back to town. Toward the world, toward whatever names were left to collect. And she walked into the night, leaving the burning farmhouse behind her like a memory that would never stop screaming.